is Gabriela Ranzi.
And I'm Marco Ranzi.
We're the children of Karen Ranzi, who wrote the book Creating Healthy Children Through Raw Food and Attachment Parenting. And we were both raised vegan and raw vegan at certain points in our life, and just attended the 5th annual Woodstock Fruit Festival, and we're here in Central Park at the also 5th annual Fruit Lug. When I was born, my mom was vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian my whole life. I've never eaten meat. I think my mom got into veganism shortly after I was born, and then by the time I was 5 years old, she was starting to get into raw food. So from about age 5 until 12, 13, we were pretty much, I'd say, like 95% raw. The only time we would eat something cooked is like when we would go to a vegan potluck or something little like out, and that was pretty rare. Yeah, so, and then at a certain point, when I got older, I started to become more interested in what everybody else was eating, and just like kind of rejected a lot of what my mom said and rebelled. And so at that point I started eating dairy, like pizza. I just wanted to eat pizza and ice cream with my friends. I wanted to fit in socially and just kind of experience it and do what everybody else was doing. And so that lasted for about 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years, like on and off. And throughout when I started college. And that's when I started to get sick for the first time. I started like drinking and like smoking and eating like really crappy food at all hours of the night. And like for me, I had such an acute, immediate reaction. Like right away, my body would just like shut down, and I'd be like in my bed the next day, like not able to get up. And you know, it was kind of like before, when I was in my teenage years, even though I was still going out with my friends and eating those same foods, I would still, at the end of the day, come back to my mom's house, and she would still like feed me salad and like smoothies in the morning, and I was still eating a lot of that food. But then when I went to college for the first time, I was completely on my own. My mom wasn't there, and I just totally like probably didn't eat a lot of fresh food at first at all, you know, so I didn't have that balance anymore. I was just completely on my own doing whatever I wanted. And that was the first time I started to have these like really acute reactions. And I think a lot of it is because of how sensitive I am from being raised this way. Like my body is just like immediately like, no. And so I still remember, like, I called my mom up one day and I was like, Mom, why am I sick again? You know, how come this keeps happening to me? And she's like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy you're sick. And you know, in the moment I got really frustrated with her, but looking back on it, I can see that the reason that she was happy is because my body was still working. Like the fact that I was having this acute reaction meant that my body was still functioning. It was really trying to reject this other food. Whereas like a lot of my peers and other people that I was around, like they could just keep doing it day after day after day and not have an acute reaction. And what I saw was more of like this just kind of like slow but steady like decline. And I saw some real changes in people, like from freshman to senior year. It was like really dramatic, and I didn't want to go down that path. And that's when I really made the connection for myself for the first time that you are what you eat, and it wasn't just like because my mom said so anymore. It was because I actually believed it for myself. And so I became vegan again. I got a blender. I started like waking up early and making green smoothies in my dorm, and you know, just have become more and more raw since then. And whenever I eat fully raw, that's when I feel the best. So that's kind of my little story in a nutshell. So.
It's a big nutshell. Yeah, mine's pretty similar because Gabrielle and I grew up together. Obviously had the same parent. So when I was 3, I was vegetarian until about 3, and I had a bunch of problems as a baby. I had asthma and really bad ear infections, and we were vegetarian, but we were kind of junk food vegetarian. And my mom realized that, you know, vegetarian is a really good first step for a lot of people, but there's also a way where you could eat vegetarian and really not be healthy at all. And a lot of my symptoms were still happening when I was vegetarian, so she tried veganism, and you could be vegan and still eat pretty terribly as well. So I still had a lot of problems, and then once she tried out raw food on me, within like a year, my ear infections and my asthma were basically gone, and they never came back. So we were, like Gabriela said, we were mostly raw for the next 7-8 years, and I don't really remember that part of my life too much. I just remember playing a lot and having a great time. I didn't really care about what I was eating, but I was happy, you know, so I guess that's a good sign. And then once we became teenagers and became more curious, I kind of went down to the same path Gabriela went down, where I was curious and I tried different food, and so I went from eating mostly raw food to just being vegan and eating kind of like junk food. And I remember I used to have a neighbor, and I used to go across the street to his house, and I used to, eat Pop Secret popcorn and Pepsi, and then I'd come home and cross the street and eat kiwis and bananas. So that was a pretty, I was living 2 lives food-wise, so that was kind of interesting. Probably wasn't the best for my body, but I was curious, and I was, I still loved fruits and vegetables. I never didn't love fruit. I always loved fruit throughout my life, and obviously to this day. But I was curious, and the other food had interesting tastes and textures and, flavors, and I was just curious. So whenever we were out of the house, or sometimes when we were in the house, we'd sneak some things and try some new things, and that kind of continued until I went to college. And when I was in college, I was vegetarian for the first 2 years, and I was really busy with what I was into. I'm interested in sports broadcasting, and I was spending so much time running to the TV station, the radio station, writing articles, and then class, and then parties, and then so many different things constantly that I really didn't have any time. And I was able to fight off the meat and not trying it until junior year. But junior year, I tried meat for the first time, and it was definitely a really strange experience. There was always a part of me that knew what I was doing was wrong, but I suppressed that part of me because it was convenient, and everybody else there was doing it. I wasn't surrounded by any vegetarians, let alone vegans or raw foodists, and it was really convenient for me, and I had very little time. So I ate meat for 2 years there, and it was always a little strange. Like I said, I always knew it didn't feel good. First of all, just some of the meats is just I just couldn't even chew them. My body was just this is not happening, you can't eat that. So that limited some of the meat that I ate, and other meat, it tasted good, but I didn't have the immediate effects as Gabriela did, where right away I felt sick. And I was in such a rushed environment where I was running around all the time that it was a little more difficult for me to notice how I felt. But over time, I definitely felt that accumulating. And I did that for a few years. I was shopping at Walmart with my friends and just eating almost like a mainstream American diet. And a few months before I was going to graduate college, I was so dead set on getting a job and just working right away. Even though I thought I was going to study abroad in college, but I was so into what I was doing, I didn't want to spend the time. And then a few months before I was about to graduate, I was just thinking, I was like, I don't know, I feel like there's something else I need to do. So I felt like I needed to travel a little bit. And once I graduated, I drank so much in college, and especially the last few weeks of college, it was just a blur for the last month. I don't even know how I was able to do that. And after I graduated, I went on a West Coast trip with a friend, and I was still eating a little meat, but it was definitely waning off of it. And certain values and the way that I grew up just slowly started to come back to me now that I was out of that environment and kind of programmed for a really long time too. Just when you're in that culture and that society where that's the norm and that's what everybody does, it became a way of life. It's really hard when you don't have the support. And like Gabriela said, I never really connected with how I ate to anything else. I just connected it to, I like fruit, it tastes good, and that's what my mom had for me. I never really went beyond like the nutritional facts of it and how I felt and the impact it has on the planet and myself and my mind. So I didn't really think about that until slowly after college, through traveling and just getting away from constant rushed environments, that I slowly started coming back to, and it didn't feel right anymore. And I started to become vegetarian again, and then vegan again, and then a few months after college really, and then ever since then I've been vegan constantly, and that's something that I will always be for the rest of my life. I know that. And experimented a lot with raw food and have really started discovering it for myself now, which is, it's become a passion. Before it was always like, oh, my mom's talking about it. It's like, here's another lecture. It's like, I've heard this 50 times. I could tell you this and like write a book about it by now. But now I'm more into it for myself, and I want to, you know, I'm really, really proud to eat this way, and I know that it's the best for myself. I know it's the best for the planet, for the animals, and it's something that I do it for myself now, which is so much more important. And I think that's what's important for a lot of other people. A lot of people that struggle going vegetarian or vegan, I don't think a lot of them are doing them for themselves. They're either looking at just the nutritional value and just like, oh, I'm just doing this because I want to get healthy. You have to like believe in your heart that you're doing it for yourself, which is really important. It's her baby.
This is my little baby, Osha.
She's only here because there's not a ball around.
And she's a vegan dog. Vegan potluck or something little like out, and that was pretty rare. Yeah, so, and then at a certain point when I got older, I started to become more interested in what everybody else was eating, and just like kind of rejected a lot of what my mom said and rebelled. And so at that point I started eating dairy. I think my mom got into veganism shortly after I was born, and then by the time I was 5 years old, she was starting to get into raw food. So from about age 5 until 12, 13, we were pretty much, I'd say, like 95% raw. The only time we would eat something cooked is like when we would go to a like pizza. I just wanted to eat pizza and ice cream with my friends. I wanted to fit in socially and just kind of experience it and do what everybody else was doing. And so that lasted for about 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years, like on and off. And throughout, when I started, my name is Gabriela Ranzi.
And I'm Marco Ranzi.
We're the children of Karen Ranzi, who wrote the book Creating Healthy Children Through Raw Food and Attachment Parenting. And we were both raised vegan and raw vegan at certain points in our life, and just attended the 5th annual Woodstock Fruit Festival, and we're here in Central Park at the also 5th annual Fruit Lug. When I was born, my mom was vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian my whole life. I've never eaten meat.